Good evening, folks. And welcome to another session from the Wise Asylum. You'll have to excuse me tonight, I'm very delicate. I had a sesh yesterday from 3 o'clock till I got in at 2:30. Not often I do that, and I'm very, very delicate today, so it'll be nice. Don't pick on me today, for goodness sake. And of course, today is the final day of week 33. Wow. What a revelatory week indeed. Oh my word. Unbelievable week. The courts, receivers, all doing some very strange things. Very, 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 very strange things indeed. Which tells little old me the tide has turned somewhat. They appear to be now shitting the bricks. And, why not? Well, not that I ever did shit my bricks, but wow, what a strange turn of events afoot with all that malarkey. But more importantly, the revelations that have come through on intuition this week have been unbelievable in relation to certain things like what the hell are they up to with this trust system that we're all suffering, because obviously we don't know what's going on, really. We have an idea. There's local methods of which people have used to sort of play with it, but ultimately the reversion is what we all seek, isn't it? And I had some exceptionally interesting insights this week, just because as well, I have to say, because I've been looking into some of the financial things, the way that they play it. Because when you start to work out how they play it at the top, they're only mimicking what it is. The ultimate benefactors or beneficiaries to this twisted system have actually set up. And you see, I think for me, I could say the one word that was sort of, I wasn't understanding it correctly. I was seeing it how we've been told to see it. And the first revelation came in that, just analysing the word conception, to conceive. And of course, we're speaking in terms of babies being popped out and such. And it occurred to me that actually we associate that with a sexual act, when in fact we're actually not dealing with real, are we, in this system? We're dealing with fiction. We're dealing with a mimic, a twisted sister kind of mimic, thanks to Eve. And conception, conceived. Something, a concept is conceived as opposed to out pops a baby. A concept is conceived. Huh? And that concept is conceived before a baby pops out. What is it? Just give it a little bit of thought. What happens when mum off to Toits to connect with Eve, who is the midwife of the sinful father, of the surname, a product of him, midwife. Mum goes and connects with Eve. What's created? Something's created there. Something that we don't necessarily. We may acknowledge it, but we don't give it any value. We're too focused to the what's going on in the hospital when they're born, and then this registration and blah 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 blah. Important. But what ultimately is the kicker? What kicks all this off? Mum goes and plays out with Eve, who's a part of Adam, or the surname, the sinful one. And the sins of the father are going to pass on to what? Oh, what's happening there? You know, something's going down here, but the moment begins when a concept is conceived as a fiction, and it's when Mummy goes off to meet Eve and says, "Look, I've got a baby in my belly." Someone's created the beginning of the concept, the sin, as it were, in the mimic. Well, we've gone through, haven't we, the timelines. We've looked at the idea that the timeline includes the 0 to 1, which is the zygote in the womb. The concept begins to take form when it's classed as a human embryo and a human fetus. Key word being human. No man there, is there? Mind, as we know man defines as, it's mind. So what man is really is mind. We've looked at that. And we'll follow that through in a little bit, just on some other concepts as to what they're saying when they say before you approach these doctrines you need to be clean. It doesn't mean you need to go and wash your hands because you've been to the toilet and you might get a bit of poo on the book, which will smell if you put it back in the library and you've not cleaned it. No, it's basically saying a caution, and that is the more you've cleansed your mind, your entire being, the more you're going to comprehend what you're going to read, what you're going to study. And it's just so important that we've gone through so many different parts of certain doctrine, and I always come up with a different idea than what's being presented by the people that need to present it in a particular way, so that you need them as an intermediary, which falls foul of the man's phrase, "The kingdom of my Father is within." And your Father. We looked the other week at the fact that they've been manipulating the Hebrew translation by beginning with Beth, the second letter, when in fact it has to begin with Aleph, the first letter, which means, as we've considered the doctrine, we're fixed at a plateau of Elohim, the archons, if you will, amongst those of the fallen. You get into the Barbello side of this, which gives them all names. It's Zeus, it's Yahweh, it's Allah, it's Athena, it's all these gods and goddesses that it's everywhere. It's all over the world, in all cultures. And that in showing that translation trickery, we've been fixed to see the height of this as within the realm of the Elohim, when in fact the creative force above that is the Father, and he created the Elohim. So that's quite a trap. It completely removes you from the truth of things. And the symbolism in what the man said is basically that he was bringing back the Father. And the biblical text, old and new, always speaks of the creative force as male, him, and Father. Very important that we don't lose sight of that. Anyway, so back to what we were saying originally today, and that is conceived of a concept, not baby. The timelines, if we've looked at, we miss out in the Christian count, the 0 to 1, it starts from 1 up to 2024 as we have it today. In so doing, we looked at the fact that this could be potentially why the other priesthood are claiming that 0 to 6,000 or something, and therefore inclusive of the kingdom within, or the creation before the concept that's created by the Father. Not necessarily the earthly Father, but of course he has to play his part. But they've played another game. They've took something that they control. It's a perpetual instrument. It's classed as sinful. And we know it's a surname. Pope Francis has made it clear the surname belongs to the church, he said. But that's his church, not the church. We know a couple of years ago he pulled in all the assets around the world beholden to the Roman Empire into the Vatican Bank. Again, we looked and thought perhaps this is where they're now moving our estates and everything that they control in a holding company ready to be placed into this no-hide trust, this new system that's going to basically remove all legal rights and lawful rights from all those that have put in it. And that means slavery. Ooh. You know, we've looked at my idea that the lower 3 chakras, whilst important to the construct of man and mind, that if you cannot raise yourself above the heart, or to the heart even, then you're pretty much running on the lower nature of what is man. You know, the root chakra, which is about survival. The second chakra, which is the sacral chakra, which is all about the sexual energy. And then the solar plexus, which calls in the energy from the sun to boost the movement of those lower chakras as well. And if it doesn't go above the heart, then you're pretty much fixing what we could class as the beast aspect of man, the lower nature. Yeah. And somebody sent me an interesting video today, which I actually managed to watch before we came on here today, and I have to say, I didn't have time enough to present it and put it as a PDF because, of course, I'm delicate today and I've been in and out of sleep most of the day. My body's not used to that. It's been a long time, but I thoroughly enjoyed myself anyway. And my daughter had a great 31st, so that was good. But I didn't have time to actually put it up as a PDF and we could go through the imagery of it. But this particular chart made a lot of sense, and it fit very well with that which we've discussed in these live streams, especially in relation to the, let's say, the fallen angelic forces fixing man into that lower nature, that cubing the man or mind in its entirety, so it can't move above the beastly level, an expression of humankind, as it were, and humankind being the key word, basically. You're not man, you're human. And of course, that's the concept. That's the concept of the mimic, is the human. Because when you get into the catechism, it's very clear that the human has the rights of person. And it's the job of this mimic system to give it that, force that, and make sure that the offspring that pops out knows only that. Mum and dad already only know that, and they cast you into the sins of the father by fixing your first name or Christian name to that surname. And Eve is the player. She's the player in that game. She's bit the apple, which is the fruit of the womb, and persuaded Adam, or earthly father, to join in. Interesting. Very, very interesting. And then we looked at Kazakhstan, and we looked at that tower with the ball on, didn't we? And I said, I don't really understand what that's trying to symbolise, but could be the apple, and that this new centre of finance, or this new centre of this new white system financial, is going to Kazakhstan, and that all the religions, or the representatives of the religions, have all agreed to this without telling anybody else what it is they've agreed to. We know it's satanic, we know it's Luciferic in its entirety. Excuse me. That the system is going to be run from Jerusalem by the Sanhedrin. Now, where that Jerusalem is going to end up, who knows? Very possibly in the Ukraine. And very interestingly as well, at the moment they're trying to synchronise Accrington and twin it with a town in Ukraine. Well, that's to do with this ID theft that's been going on all around us. That I spoke about a couple of years ago. I did one on about how they're doing the cross-county lining with the IDs, setting up new IDs secondary to yours, building it up, then they start to cancel it out, and then once they're doing that, you know that they're coming for you, kill that creditor, and then this fake ID picks up the estate. So this twinning that they're doing right now, Ukraine, of course, remember, is not going to be Ukraine when this is done. This is going to be where the elites of those that run Israel, run Russia as the Bolsheviks, or the Holy See families, or the banking dynasties, trustees being the Rothschilds, intend to move back to the homeland. So by twinning towns and cities here in Blighty, or on Blighty, with these Ukrainians, this is not a good idea. This is sinister in the extreme, ladies and gentlemen, and people need to get aware of it. If you've took the nonsense, you've got the idea already inside you. You're going to need to scan you with the phone, and you've got it. And they're very short of children and females' IDs at the moment because they've just overloaded us with males of the UN soldier branch. So we've discussed all that. But back to what I said originally, and it's this concept that's conceived. And I've missed the boat with that word conception, thinking like everybody else. It's speaking specifically about the conception of a baby, or a zygote, as it were, in mummy's tummy. Oh no. No. So everything we've covered, basically, in these live streams, it flows. It's flowing. There's more insights coming. Things are fitting together quite nicely, I would suggest. And obviously, if you guys out there are listening and taking this on, you also may be seeing how this flows, how it's just flowing constantly. Everything's fitting in together, and it's just moving in the right direction, because ultimately we're seeking to understand the mimic, what they've done, why it is we all seem to be trapped in it. Well, very interesting week indeed on that line. It's brilliant. The stuff that's come through this week that we're now looking at is excellent. So fun. Yeah, I just can't say it. What, week 33? All these fruit bats running around going, oh, it's 33, it must be evil. Very powerful numbers, and it's been a very powerful week. If you've been paying attention, I would suggest. So, who's joined us tonight? Let's have a look. Benefactor says, hi, Sean. You spelt it wrong. I'm looking forward to another wisdom-filled live show as we decode the code. Greetings to all the participants. Let's get ready to rumble. Let's get ready to rumble, Benefactor. Good evening to you. June says, good evening, Sean and chat. Good evening, June. The Lone Rizzler says, evening, Sean and fellow pupils. That's You want to go one back on etymology, what pupil is. It's not good. We're inmates. My good man. Inmates of the Wise Asylum. Wayne says, thanks Sean. Hi everyone. Hello Wayne. Paul says, good evening Sean and inmates of the Wise Asylum. Good evening Paul. David says, hiya Sean and peeps. Good evening to you. Mew says, got made a mod on another channel today. Sean's been on the piss. Any cabbage Sean? Not a single bit. In fact, I've got to be quite honest with you. I can't stand the smell of it anymore. How's that? It stinks and it drives me nuts. So, no, definitely not ever going back to that, to be honest. I mean, the way it's freedom of mind in relation to being able to hold stuff rather than forgetting it is that's worth its weight in gold, and I have to say. And recognising that as I have in this time, it's not going to go back to that. No, but let's just say it was quite a chemical mix yesterday in all accounts, and I think I might be getting too old for that kind of malarkey, is all I can say. Although I'm quite chilled. I'm quite chilled on. It's quite a chilling day. So no cabbage, Mew. None at all. Michael Jr. says, hi Sean, all Wise Asylum seekers. Hello to you, Michael. PY Music says, evening all, evening Paul. Stuart McKenzie says, con. What's the con? Con. Concept. Conception. Exactly. Precisely. And just flying around with that word this week in my mind, and I just thought, it's not conceiving the baby. It's the conception of a concept. Your throat sounds hoarse, Sean. Hope you've been drinking that Accrington Pissy Lager. Well, Moretti where I could, because I do like a Moretti. And I did drink a lot, I have to be honest. I don't even look at how much I spent. But it was great to be around the family. And we're all good. We all had a spiffing time. And, yep, it was very nice. It was strange. There were a young lad running around everywhere. I think he was a gypsy. And I was outside on the fag and I could hear him getting a bit excited and his mates trying to calm him down. And he was watching everybody coming into a pub and he's going, pagans, fucking pagans. And I'm thinking, is that what they're thinking? Everybody's a fucking pagan? What the fuck? I don't know what was going on with that young chap, but you were a bit fucked, if you ask me. Calling everybody that were going into a pub pagans. Pagans, fucking pagans. I'm like, well, you're getting pissed as well, son, you know what I mean? But yeah, that was just a strange little off-the-cuff note I witnessed. Accrington Pissy Lager, I might have had one or two where they didn't have Moretti. But price of it. Price of the stuff. Hell. You couldn't count. You had to not count how much you were spending because it was just outrageous. Slipknot says, alright Sean, Jacqueline and everyone, hello Slipknot. Alexander says, evening Sean, evening all, good evening Alexander. LFX gives it the old thumbs up. Mupit says, soul is produced. Well, the word is a product as well, isn't it? If we looked at the definitions, and originally it was the breath, wasn't it? Now they changed it to soul. LFX, 4E to us. Well, yeah, interesting there, LFX. And hell ho him. Interesting. Mike says, evening Sean, evening Mike. Jerry says, conception, the spark. Are you 9 months older? Oh, what have I just done? I just whizzed. Hang on. Conception, the spark. Are you 9 months older? Well, it's not what we thought, is it? The concept isn't actually the meeting of the sperm and the bloody egg. It's the creation of the concept that they're playing with. But something's created when Mum goes to visit Eve. Think about it. See if you can put it up. Because tonight's going to be more of a Q&A anyway, because basically I just haven't had time to put anything together. It's been a busy week again. And of course going out yesterday, I've been in and out of sleep most of the day. You were like, I didn't have an headache though, but I think I drank a lot of water before I went to bed last night, so that perhaps stopped me being dehydrated. But what are we there? Good evening, says Big E. Evening, Big. Oh shit! I didn't ring you, did I? You rung me wrong phone. I didn't pick it up till a couple of days later, and then I forgot. Sorry about that, matey. You just reminded me there. But yeah, I've got my burner phone, and I haven't been using it for a while, and if I forget to check it, I don't even know whether anybody's texting me or anything, so sorry about that. If you still need me to chat, we can do. Good evening to everyone in the madhouse, and kindest regards, says Big E. Evening to you, sir. Mark says, evening, Moo Dazzle Lamb. Moo Dazzle Lamb. Jerry says, flight, scattered across the earth. Fight, flight, scattered across the earth. And David says, Accrington Stalin. Stanley. Who are they? When I was training in gym these last few weeks, they were all palled in. They're good lads, and a lot of them were Scousers. Alpha teams are Scouts. Mark says, Sean, how come no one in the knowledge movement of conditional acceptance doctrine had an answer for all the pensioners murdered in every country which was the blag for COVID? So how come no one in the knowledge movement of conditional acceptance doctrine had an answer for all the pensioners? Well, it just went so quick, didn't it, back then? It was just quite ridiculous. I mean, to be honest, if you think about it, if families hadn't started putting their elderly into the care homes, that would never have happened, would it? You know what I mean? Action, reaction, it's a step, boom, 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 it just keeps going. And each time everybody gets born idle and lazy and can't be asked, convenience. You know, like now they can't be asked to walk to McDonald's, they can't be asked to get in car and go to McDonald's, they go and ring Just Eats. They couldn't be asked to go into town and go to different shops to buy the shopping each week, they went to supermarkets. And now they couldn't be asked to look after their elderly, which takes them away from their grandchildren. Grandchildren don't get any insight into what it was like before the mum and dad screwed it up. Everything's do. So I would say there, I don't know. I don't know what to say to that, but I think if people hadn't put the elderly in the care homes, that would never have taken place for a start. I would never put any elderly in a care home, any of my clan. None of my clan have been on statins at all. I'm talking about the older ones, so they didn't suffer from dementia or Alzheimer's. We've still got some elderly ones now, and they're still very healthy. Why? Because they don't go anywhere near them pill-popping drug dealers. You know? Something in it, chaps. Everything's in it, in truth. I was having a conversation only this week with a friend sat outside Costa in town this time. And we were chatting away, and I was just looking around, and everybody walking around, drug addicts, medication drug addicts. They look like zombies. It was ridiculous. And you look at them, and they're like, we want you to feel sorry for them. Like, so, oh, and I've got this. I'm like, fuck off, you lazy bone-eyed bastard. You're a fucking drug addict. You're costing us all a fortune. Why would I have sympathy? And I didn't have any sympathy. They're all zombies. Drug addicts. Probably upset a lot of people actually that we sat around because I weren't very quiet about it. Because I never am when I'm trying to preach something. I want everybody to hear it. So, but you could see all their faces going, that's me. Quiet. Oh, head down. So yeah, I don't know what to say about that, Mike. Kerry says, love from Ireland, and love back to Ireland, Kerry. Good evening to you. Stuart says, sealing their estate, Mark Oatford. LFX, people. Interesting. The Lone Whistler says, apologies, ref pupils. Was stress getting a tick off the dog lol? Evening inmates. A tick, ooh. What you do, burn them. Sean's been dancing. Do you know I didn't do any dancing? Not even a bit of dancing last night, which is unusual, because I usually do a lot of dancing. But I didn't. Probably because music's not the same anymore. It's all this, I'm thick as fuck, because I'm thick as fuck. Because somebody told me that I was good, and I believed it, because I'm thick as fuck. That's it. I can't dance to that. It's fucking rubbish. So I can't dance to that. That's probably why I weren't dancing. Anyway. Mike says, it's deeper than that, Stuart, I assure you. LFX, Deceptive Const. Decepticonst. Might be pushing it with that one. Stuart says, can you elaborate more, mate? Be a mash up the brain. Well, it's not often I do it, so I don't mind losing a few brain cells. I think I've got plenty to go around. Jerry says that fight flight was in regards to trapped in the lower cube. Yeah. So one does wonder. So what that video was saying basically tonight, and it's a shame I didn't watch it earlier because I could have actually put a PDF together and we could have looked, because it was the symbolism that he pulled it together through. As above, so below, 46, dragged in 322, skull and bones, and a triple helix. And all the math added up to that, and basically what he's sort of suggesting is that what they kicked off in 2020, what they're about to try and do again, is the method of a physical way in which they can fix you, as Coldplay said. We can fix you. And in the background of that video, what do you get? Adelphi House and Shell Mex House. While he sings that very bit, we shall fix you. Not for no reason was that symbolism in that tune by Coldplay, the Satanic Puffs. So basically his thesis is that this all shenanigans is for them to genetically fix you to the cube, keeping you below the heart. And thus the beast is revealed. So, very interesting video. I will probably put it up under this live so you can have a look at it yourself. But it is a shame I didn't watch it a bit earlier. But yeah, very interesting and very fitting with all that we've discussed over these years. Jerry says, and I've done that one, Mark, it happened in care homes, hospitals and their own homes. Well, if mum and dad had not thought, let's put granny in hospital so we can not have to do any work and just wait for it to die so we can have her money, probably wouldn't have happened. You know what I'm saying? LFX, weaker, or is it just weaker? Well, we've definitely got a lot of that going on. I mean, I noticed early this week, we had another shower of dust, brown dust. Interestingly, isn't it, that they've already kicked off an emergency. I mean, last time they died, 3 months after, they were all locked up. So, you know, now we're getting more brown rain, shitty rain. What are they doing? I don't know that it is connected, but it has been measured for magnetism, so we know it's not normal. It's certainly not sand from the Sahara. Is it? I mean, how many years have we been playing with that? Oh, it's sand from the Sahara! Yeah. Cos, 1973 is the wavy hand and the gigs and the moustache. Evening to you, Cos. Benefactor says, when the pregnancy is acknowledged by a medical practitioner, it is recorded under the due diligence of the church. The Holy Father's name is used as the church claims the surname of the father. So Eve, we might say, or midwife, is a priestess of this mimic church. And she persuades Adam, Daddy, dumbass, which we all were, to play along and take a bite out of the fruit of the womb and fix it. We will fix you. And fix it. To the concept of a human embryo, a human fetus, a human child, who gets human rights. And what are those rights? Person. Can we see this? So the born data that's being collected and the registration data is only 2 parts of Eve meeting Mummy and giving Daddy a bite. What say you to that, ladies and gentlemen? But give some consideration to what it is that's created that concept, because something's made when Mummy goes to visit Eve. Something's created straight away. Give it some thought. I have videos, audio files, recording statements, data history and more. No one had done anything apart from magic films. Well, I made a lot of videos in that time and they all got took down off YouTube. But I had them all up on a guys who had fled to South America. I think it was called 123. Now, last time I checked, they were all back up. So all the videos I made on that very subject, on all that stuff, we put up on that platform. Now, in the time since, he's had it took down, he's had to move his service to another country and all this, that and the other. But he still has it all together. It just, as long as he can get it up online, they're back up. And he, you know, when he did, last time I looked, which is probably last year, I was quite surprised that they were all back up. So I did everything, Mark, in that time. Unfortunately, from the YouTube, it all got took down. It's on my website. You just put in the search box lockdown, and that'll bring you up 2 pages. And that's pretty much everything I did. From February 2020 up to about May, something like that. So I did do it, my good man, and it took some effort. But if you remember back at then, everybody was shutting themselves, nobody was listening, only them that had a bit of sense about them. And so it got lost in the mist of fear for most people. Now I put it all up on my Facebook, and to be fair, Facebook never actually took it down. They would leave it up for a while, and then when it's gone down in the thing, then they tend to remove it. But you got the chance to see it. And I made all the noises, and I spoke about all the subject matter in videos, and I made quite a few of them. So I did do it. Profiler X says, evening lads, evening Profiler. Mark says, make films. What, me? But where are you going to put them? Rumble won't let me upload. BitChute won't let me upload. And I think I've got about another 3. They won't let me upload. D-Light. None of them will let me upload videos to any of my other platforms. And it's been so for quite a while. I can't do any more than that. I can put them on my website. I can do that. So perhaps maybe. Benefactor says, like to make CCC, we know you before you are born. Yes, that's what the Catholic Catechism of the Catholic Church speaks of. They knew you before you were born because you became a concept, their concept, the human. The human fetus, human embryo. Well said, Benefactor. David says, the Queen pushed the button that lit up the 3-strand DNA. So was that what you're thinking was symbolising the 2012 Olympics? Makes sense. Profiler X just found out that in Japanese mythology, the demon Tengu is a Yid mate. Okay. Not surprising. And Mew says, moon looks fantastic in the northwest. Oh, I can't see it from here, it's up to the side. Does it? It's quite big. I know I saw it yesterday coming up over Hamilton. It was big. I used to sit on copies on a full moon and wait for it to come up, and it was like, ooh, the energy as it come up past the hill was like, wow. We don't do that kind of stuff anymore. I've seen the data, Mark Alfred, as it shows you how much medicine your doctor used in March 2020. Profiler X just found out that moon looks fantastic. Hope that this time they'll leave my comments untouched. Well, has somebody been moving your comments? Come on, guys, don't be removing people's comments, just only if they note it. You see, you got to remember also, Profiler, YouTube, 77 Brigade and Unit 8200 play as well, and they're the ones that do some removing and remove my stats, like they did this week. Obviously to keep it low in the thing is, but they do remove. Lower the stats on everything. Recycling Gestapo, breaking news. You can get the thing from ingesting monkey spunk ice holidays. Well, as I understand it, it's a bumshagger condition, isn't it? But what's actually being said is that if you go with the idea that pathogens have been put in and these towers are activating them, and that this is just a symptom of them pressing certain frequencies out, knowing full well that those that did the deed are going to start showing with this stuff. So, could be. Anyway, we'll not get too fixed on that because YouTube don't like it. And we don't want to get kicked off, do we? So, yeah, I think we're all in the picture on the potential of what's about to come. Same format, same game, full of shit. Starmer's made it very clear he supports Davos first before Parliament. In an interview, which I think I put up on the Facebook. It's there for you to see, you've got a Bolshevik bastard in here. Complete and utter Bolshevik bastard. Jimmy Savile's vagina. Because that's who rinsed him as a kid. Jimmy Savile. And he looks like he's turned him into the perfect enemy, innit? Or golem talking head. I mean, he's not even really good at talking, is he? His eyes are too close together. He looks like he's dead in his eyes. He's ugly as sin. I mean, that's ugly, innit? I mean, we've had some ugly prime ministers like Liz Truss and such, but Maggie Thatcher, I mean, because she looked like a beak, didn't she? Like a pecking bird. But I have to say, this guy he takes the biscuit. He's like an amalgamation of ugly, all rolled into one. So there, Sir Jimmy Savile strikes again. But anyway. Profile Rex, no YouTube algorithms, I guess. Well, we don't want to be getting them excited, do we? Money, folks, exactly. That's exactly what it's about. But more importantly, again, if we look at this three-stand DNA and fixing you to the lower nature, that makes sense to me. That makes perfect sense to me. It works with the 666, it works with the cube. And that's how I see it, basically. That's exactly how I see it. So, yeah. So, have we got any questions? Anything anybody want to present so that we can have a look at? Because, like I said, I've not really done anything at all today, apart from watch that video. But not in time to actually turn into beer. Because the symbolism he uses, the counts, the maths, he's very good. He's excellent, actually. Cryptoid Starmer, he did badly. Hence the reason why he seems to have more alters than some of them ladies that David Icke interviewed back in the day. So yeah, Definitely. Not good, anyway. It's certainly not good. There's nothing good coming from this bunch, I'll tell you that now. Nothing good at all. So, well, I do have a couple of things that we can have a look at. One being, so this is something I sort of wanted to do before, but we didn't have time. But this is just an insight into Jimmy Savile's vagina and his hypocrisy. And it says, Sir Hypocrisy Starmer refuses to repeal a law that gives him a special tax perk. And of course, I need to shift it over, don't I? I might have to just make that tiny little bit bigger. Let me have a look. A bit bigger for you. So it basically says, by Rhoda Wilson on the July 28, 2024, Keir Starmer has a unique pension deal from his time as Director of Public Prosecutions, the DPP, which allows him to avoid tax on his savings. Yesterday it was revealed that while he is attempting to force wealthy savers to be subject to a cap on their pension savings through taxation rules, he will keep in place a law that allows him to be exempt from those very rules. Regulations were swiftly implemented in 2013 to give Starmer a special tax break, officially titled the Pensions Increased Pension Scheme for Keir Starmer QC. Regulations 2013. It was introduced through secondary legislation. The regulations were issued on the 21st of October 2013 and made on 8th of October 2013, laid before Parliament on the 9th of October 2013 and came into force on the 31st of October 2013. The effect of the regulation is that Starmer is exempt from paying tax on pension savings over 1 million. Last year, then Labour leader Starmer pledged to force wealthy savers to be subject to a cap on their pension savings. However, as the Telegraph revealed, under the pension scheme for Keir Starmer QC regulations, Starmer's pension from his time at DPP between 2008 and 2013 is exempt from tax rules. He would apply to other workers who save more than 1 million. The Telegraph explains Starmer's hypocrisy. The Labour leader was the only member of the exclusive pension scheme which had tax benefits that broadly matched those enjoyed by judges and disclosed in Crown Prosecution Service accounts, signed by Keir himself. When he stood down, the government passed secondary legislation titled the Pensions Increased Pension Scheme for Keir Starmer QC, Regulations 2013, that ensured his pension was increased once a year to keep pace with rising prices. The arrangement means he can continue to save money from his salary as an MP and any future salary as a government minister for longer without incurring a tax bill. Under the current system, almost all taxpayers must pay rates of 25% on money taken as income, or 55% on a lump sum on any sums over 1.7 million. Then Chancellor Jeremy Hunt abolished the 107 million pension cap in his spring budget, effective April 2024, to prevent experienced NHS workers from trying to avoid paying tax bills. Well, nobody cares a toss about NHS anymore, do they, after what they've done and what they've shown themselves to be. But under Sir Keir Starmer's arrangement, any money he saved while serving as DPP does not count towards his total. The same benefit is not given to other senior civil servants of equivalent rank, such as permanent secretaries in government departments, and was removed from directors of public prosecutions in 2014 after Sir Keir stood down, so it were specifically just for him. The tax perk had also applied to his predecessors in the DPP role. The benefit was abolished for Keir Starmer's successors the year after he stood down. Hypocrite Starmer to avoid tax on pension, The Telegraph, 21st of March 2023. Starmer subsequently pledged to repeal his special tax perk law in March 2023. Starmer announced that if Labour wins the next election, he will change the law to remove the tax break he personally benefited from. In June 2024, it was reported that Labour's planned pension tax would reimpose a 55% tax rate on pension savings above 1.7 million. This would affect around 2 million people, including public sector workers, entrepreneurs and captains of industry. However, as Express reported, one man has arranged his own personal opt-out, Sir Keir Starmer. This month it was reported that the new government was debating means testing the state pension to fund their spending plans. This would involve taxing retirees who earn above a certain threshold, potentially reducing their state pension payments. Effectively, retirees could get a lower sum if Starmer and Reeves decide they are earning too much. But this earning too much rule won't apply to Starmer. On Friday, Richard Alden MP tweeted that Starmer has made a U-turn and will not be scrapping the law that specifically applies to him alone. So there's the little Bolshevik shitbag, and it's his U-turn on his place to scrap his own. So he was going to do it, now he's U-turn because of course he's greedy. And Richard Alden is a British Conservative politician who first elected in December 2019 as the first ever Conservative Member of Parliament for North West Durham. He currently serves as a Member of Parliament for Basildon and Billericay, Essex. He was elected to the seat in July 24, general election succeeding the abolished constituency of North West Durham. On Monday, Mr Alden put a written parliamentary question to the Treasury to ask the Chancellor of the Exchequer if he will take steps to repeal the pensions increase. In response, Darren Jones, the Chief Secretary of the Treasury, said the 2013 regulations were introduced to ensure the Director of Public Prosecution's pension scheme is uprated in line with other public service pension schemes. There are no plans to repeal the regulations, he added. So that's the Bolshevik. What else do we have here? Now this is a very interesting bit of gig as well. I think we looked at it. What is the UK version of this code, 15 USC 1611? And it's to do with credit, false and misleading denial of credit. It's my belief that the entire consumer transaction is predicated on your credit. So I want to speak to the underwriter in the bank, but I need the code, the UK code, as I believe 15 USC 1611 is a USA code. And the answer: A. 15 USC 1611 pertains to civil liability in the context of credit transaction disclosures under the US Truth in Lending Act. The UK equivalent governing credit agreements and disclosures is the Consumer Credit Act 1974. While there are similarities, the specific provision and remedies may differ. So you should consult the Act and possibly seek guidance from a UK-based solicitor to understand the nuances and relevant sections. So they're not disclosing that they're playing a game of transferring their debt and forcing you to credit it. And in America, they have 15 USC 1611, which forces them to disclose that. Here, we don't. But it points in the direction of the Consumer Credit Act 1974. Now, there are other acts attached to the Consumer Credit Act as well. And therefore, in there, we will find the words to make them disclose the reality of what's going on in this game. So that's another piece of interesting data that people need to be aware of. This is an interesting piece on the sordid family history of John Forbes Kerry, member of the Skull and Bones, pushing the new taxation gig called Wind and Rain Change. So I'm not generally a big believer in condemning people for the sins of the forefathers or for the family background, provided it's not too outlandish. However, when it comes to the world leaders born of wealth and privilege, it's worthwhile to pause and evaluate their history. Doing so provides insight into the character, culture and connections, which in turn speaks to their ability to lead and their loyalties. And of course his daughter is pretty much picking up as they look like they're going to move him into the sidelines like they did with that other fruit bat. What were he called? I can't remember his name. He was the one that were pushing it for a long time. It says, when you stumble across a sordid history of a leader whose family fortune was made in the China opium trade and who has reinvented their ethnic backstory for the purpose of political favour, then it's time to throw a red flag and cry foul. And it's time to throw a flag on John F. Kerry. Now, The China opium was all big part of that carried out by the Russells, the Russell family, of course, from which we get Jehovah's Witnesses. And it was Charles Taze Russell's grandfather that formed the Skull and Bones. So, making his family fortune from the China opium trade interconnects him into the Russells and everything that came from it, but specifically the Skull and Bones, the 322, which numerologically taps into this creation of this three-strand DNA thing that they're talking about fixing us to with all this nonsense that they're doing. John Forbes Kerry, throughout his political career, portrayed himself as the son of a Boston Brahmin mother and a father who was a simple Irish Catholic man on the street. This image served him well in Massachusetts politics. Where the story gets interesting is with Kerry's grandparents, more specifically his Brahmin mother's side, the Forbes family. The history of his maternal great-grandfather, Francis Forbes, is largely scrubbed, annihilated, disingenuous. For example, he's often cited as a China merchant, when in actuality he was an opium dealer operating in China. This was the fountainhead of Forbes' wealth. We have a follow-up article on the opium trade, but at one point 30 million Chinese were addicted and the country was a wreck. So it's got links, so I'll put this up under the video. The history of Francis Blackwell Forbes, 1839-1908, as cited on Wikipedia, states he was an American botanist with expertise in Chinese seed-producing plants, who also worked as a merchant and opium trader in Asia. Apart from a 2-year stay in Europe in 1875 to 76, Forbes lived in China from 1857 to 1882. The career and honours section of his biography states that this criminal received awards for his lifelong work with poppies. What a farce. So that's bringing in the Sassoons, isn't it? The Dangors and the other bunch of blighters that we looked at who were interconnected with Edward VII. So, yeah, you can see it all here. It's all the same network. Kerry enjoyed certain status and entry into Yale because his father, Richard Kerry, married well. Or maybe, as you will see, it was the other way around. Next, let's look at Kerry's paternal side. His paternal grandfather was born Fritz Kohn, 1873-1921, the son of a Jewish brewmeister in Benich, Moravia, near Brno, which is in the present-day Czech Republic. Kerry's paternal grandmother, Nee Ida Leo, hailed from a very well-known and large Jewish family in Brno, Moravia. The Leo clan are descendants of the famous Kabbalist and Talmudist Rabbi Judah Leo, aka Leo, 1518-1609, the Maharal of Prague and creator of the Golem. History tells that Rabbi Leo, using sorcery like magic, created the monstrous and gigantic golem from the muddy banks of Prague's river as a bogeyman to intimidate and scare the heck out of the city's Gentiles. The rabbi's hoax worked, and this made Leo a highly sought-after mystic and black magician, a fascinating figure indeed. And there he is in an image. A freakish and rather ridiculous statue of Rabbi Leo stands outside Municipal Hall in Prague. It depicts an octopus draped from his neck and a naked woman clinging to his side. The resemblance to John Kerry is stark. It was erected in 1910 by the powerful Jewish community at the time. During the occupation, the Nazis thought the hideous spectacle spoke for itself and just left the statue untouched. A statue of Leo's golem creation stands nearby. Now, maybe to some, Kerry's history is just a long string of random connections, but in my eyes, having both Judah Law and Francis Forbes in your bloodline is more than a mere curiosity for a guy who is obviously intelligent, as John Forbes Kerry is. It's unfair. Where is it? Where's that gone? It is unfathomable that his family tree would be a mystery to him. In 2003, as Kerry's presidential campaign saw big contributors to the opposition drug for dirt, genealogists turned up these surprising family factoids. Kerry had expressed surprise that his Bostonian Irish jig was up and then dismissed the findings as obscure ancestry. He did fess up to having an ancestor from Austria, but back in the depths of history, in reality his paternal grandparents were from Austria, or more exactly Moravia. Sorry John, being a half-Jewish relative of one of the most famous rabbis in history is not that obscure either. The outlandish Irish story. According to an archive for Jewish genealogy, Kerry's Moravian grandfather Fritz John and Fitz brothers Otto Korn converted to Roman Catholicism in Vienna in 1901 as part of their family reinvention. This simply picked the name Kerry off a map of Ireland. In 1905, Fritz John Kerry and his wife Ida Leo moved to America. After a few years they situated in Boston, where in 1915 they had a son, Richard Kerry, the future father of John F. Kerry. Richard had good positions within the US government's Foreign Service Division and had a keen interest in politics throughout his life. For sake of discussion of this outlandish Irish claim, we can presume Kerry's father grew up with a standard Boston accent. However, grandfather Fred Kerry, aka Fritz Korn, didn't migrate from Central Europe to the US until he was 32 years old and his wife Ida was 28. So there is no way either could have passed themselves off as Irish Catholic, given the heavy Czech or German, not Irish accents they would have had. And there's a picture of John Kerry's father, Richard. Of course, language can change over a person's lifetime and even speech patterns, but accents are established by age 12. For example, listen to Henry Kissinger. He immigrated from Germany in 1938 at the age of 15, and he still speaks with a thick accent. In fact, my own grandmother's native tongue was Norwegian, and only a moron would ever confuse her accented American English later in life with Irish. No, John Kerry's grandparents would have most likely had a thick German accent. Brno and Moravia has a mix of Czech and German speakers, and especially so during the 19th century when it was under Austrian Habsburg rule. Despite having had a successful shoe business in Brooklyn, Mass, Fred committed suicide in 1921. His son Richard would have been just 6 years old at the time, which is certainly old enough to know that his dad didn't have a Boston Irish accent. Ida Leo Kerry lived a long life until 1960. John Kerry was born in 1943, so unless Grandma, who lived in the same community, was hidden in the attic, there is zero chance that John Kerry thought he was an Irish woman. Thought she was an Irish woman. And was Kerry's father Richard's character so questionable that he couldn't just reveal the truth and follow it up with, but we're good Catholics now? Instead, we get more terrible storytelling, patterns of white lies and acting surprised or put upon when revelations come about, as John Kerry did, is a bad characteristic. Note, despite the duplicity, Richard Kerry was not a neocon, but more a multilateralist and a pro-UN globalist. However, released classified documents revealed he was in the thick of transferring heavy water for Israel's nuclear program. And there it says, attached for your information is a letter from Mr. Kerry, First Secretary of Embassy to Oslo, enclosing a copy of a secret agreement covering the sale of heavy water to Israel by Norway. Please note Mr. Kerry's injunction to keep the knowledge of this transaction strictly on a need-to-know basis in view of the political sensitivity of this subject in Norway. And there it's marked off, secret. Does John Forbes Kerry pedigree and the storytelling behind it matter in the bigger scheme of things? You will have to decide for yourself, but see our post on his remarks about WT7, World Trade Center 7. To me, it's more than passing interest, it says a lot. And then there's a couple more. UK PM David Cameron's great-grandfathers were Rothschild-connected bankers who financed Russia or Japanese war. So, and just another couple of interesting links there as well. Now, like I said, I think they're trying to put him in the background a bit, and his daughter seems to be picking it up. I'm just trying to think of the other guy that used to run around. Al Gore, you remember? Al Gore were up there for a time, then he got bored. He came up for a time. It was like they shunting him to the side and putting his daughter up, and as well as any other Davos fruit bat that wants to have a bash. But yeah, not what he seems at all, is it, that fella? And I think you already know that. But not everybody does. But 322 Skull and Bones, very important, because he was set up as part of the death cult, the German chapter 322. You know, the Killing God's Law. And if they can fix you to that 666 within that cube, the lower nature, the beast system is coming alive. So, interesting. Where were we with you guys? Recycling Gestapo, yes, Sean, with the smiley. Crypto, you'd saw, yep. LFX, steer karma, he will get his. Neat one. Good evening from a silent watcher. Good evening to you, neat one. Happy Camper says, good evening all. Happy Camper, good evening. LFX, is that a well-written waiver? Profile X, Kerry's real family name is Corn. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. And Jerry Sonomic says, great stuff, Sean. Thanks for that, Jerry. Debbie, good evening. Bit late to the party. Better late than never, they say. Hello, Debbie. And Mind Racer. Hello, Mind Racer. Hi, Debs, he says. And hello to you, Mucker. Profiler X, Kerry's daughter could be a bloke. Well, wouldn't surprise me. I mean, they're making a bit of a meal of that boxer, aren't they, from Olympics? Have you seen it? I mean, he has to box women because he's obviously a chicken shit piece of puff. But if you put it, he needs to go in with some fellas and get his head kicked in, I think. It's easy beating girls up, innit, you know. Come on. They're making a right do with that. LFX, Decepticons. And have I missed something out? Yeah. No, that doesn't look like I missed anything out. I'm sure I saw something. No. Okay. Thought I'd seen something there. I thought somebody had answered the question that I'd asked about what is it that's created when Mother goes to meet Eve. Alexander says, we also got Theodore Herzl Street in the middle of Belgrade. I wouldn't be surprised if they built a memorial to sabotage ever, yeah. Well, yeah, that's how he got into Islam. And, I mean, let's explore what I've said with Islam before, because I know that Muslims don't know this because they don't read it. But like all doctrine, you know, it's very clear that they say you've got to be clean. And people think, I better go and wash my hands. No. It's saying, you know, if you're not clean in spirit, you won't understand the essence of these concepts. And it's the same with all the doctrine. You know, I look at this stuff and I come up with something completely different. And then I'll present it to you guys. Now, I'm not telling you have to believe what I'm saying. I'm just presenting to you what I see when I read this stuff. What you think of it is entirely up to you. You know, we're not creating a religion here. We're just trying to examine things, investigate things, and present our findings, sort of thing. And that's the way it works, isn't it, in the West? That's what we do. But for Muslims, I mean, Islam, like all of these doctrines, it's a test for you. There's a test in it. And what I like about the Quran itself in respect of that test, it's right at the beginning, the first test. And that is, it says clearly, and I'm paraphrasing, but that everything is in this book, down to the tiniest detail. So that's telling you, it's in here. Don't go anywhere else. What do? The Imams, they go to the Hadith. So straight away, they've broke the first test when it comes to studying that work. The second point in that work is that it makes it clear that a true Muslim has to accept and acknowledge and abide by the prophets and patriarchs of the biblical text. That's Old Testament and New Testament. Which means that you're bound to the Ten Commandments. So I've said this before when we've looked at Islam, that when I read it last, I could see that Gabriel is in there. But it's so obscure because the majority of the text in there isn't of Gabriel. And if you're not clean, you won't see it. Okay, so the first test is, it's in there. If you go into the Hadith, you've failed. You can fear. So that's your Imams for a start. Your second test is that you've got to abide by the patriarchs and prophets of the Old and New Testament. So that's the Ten Commandments. Yeah? And the third major test is that he makes it very clear, does Allah, that he's not the Father. Which means he's not the same God as the biblical text. So there you've got 3 points of test right away, if you're following Gabriel. Because the majority of everything else that's in there is encouraging them to break the Ten Commandments. And they go to the Hadith to superimpose why they have to break it. So it's a test for everybody that book and that system has been forced upon to test their worth. And they fail miserably. I think I've only ever met one imam in my life who I would suggest probably followed the correct line of it and worked amongst Islam. But, you know, like, all these doctrines are a test for you. And basically, if you're following the other side of it, which is what all Muslims do, so the rape, the slavery, the war, the enslavement, all this malarkey that breaks all the 10 Commandments, your doctrine is going to, following that doctrine, because your heart's dark, you're going to hell. It's going to take you straight to hell. It's as simple as that. But there's a comprehension that you've got to have if you're going to look at this stuff and understand it. And if you're not going to look at it yourself because you don't feel you're clean enough and you're scared of looking at it, you're following these guys that are telling you to chase the parts, the majority of it that's taking you in the war doctrine, which is nothing to do with Gabriel. It's nothing to do with the upkeep of the Ten Commandments, the patriarchs and the prophets of the biblical text. And that's it. And that's as simple as it is in that respect to Islam. If you're not seeing Gabriel's message, which is very fine in there, it's not much, you are following the false because you're looking for satisfying your dark heart, for slavery, for war. We want to be in charge, we want to tax you, we want to enslave you, and that breaches everything in the biblical text, especially the New Testament. So there's your test there, and it's the same in the biblical text. You know, the followers of the Torah weren't good enough for them. They needed to go to the Talmud to interpret the Torah, and then it satisfies their dark heart at the first chakra, the root chakra, for their own self-survival, to the point it brings you to full circle that the only way you're going to survive at that chakra is kill everybody that's not like us. And there you go. Second chakra is sexual energy. Islam is all about sexual energy. It's all about negative sexual energy. That's everywhere. That's what it's about, if it's in the negative. And for most of them it is, which is why they chase slavery, they chase war, power, taxation, and the way they treat females. It's the way it is. That's the test. You failed. Christians are the same. They've gone over time and asked the Jews how to be Christians. In so doing, have picked up the Talmud, and now you've got Christian Zionism. You're on a road to hell. And these three negatives, Judaism, Islam, Christianity, you know, when you listen to the speech, so we watched that, you know, we looked at the Abe Finkelstein, didn't we? And there was a certain point in there where the pastor started to badger Abe and said, look, well, we believe our God Yahweh says we're going to win. And Abe says, yeah, well, we believe ours says we're going to win. And then Islam are giving it, yeah, but Islam is mighty. So whoever formed these texts have made sure that all the unclean, negative people that go for this garbage side of whatever it is they're studying are going to clash. And that's the timeline. They're going to clash, they're going to get fed everything that they want to put out. Everything they want to do to you, they're going to get fed. And that's their timeline. And which is why I say, we're in this world, but we don't have to be of it. Now, being of it as it stands is not to be following that darkness. Be aware of it, be reckoned with it, but don't get in it. Don't get inside it. Watch it. Because there's nothing you can do. They're going to race off to their own annihilation so they can be fed their own shit, whether you say so or not. Just don't get tied in it. That's the game. And you know, you're raising your game. You're above them three cubes of madness because you're looking at things properly. you've cleansed your mind, your soul, your spirit, whatever you want to call it, to a point where you're not going to get fixed into that because you're not pumping that out. You don't need to feed yourself it. You know, the universe doesn't have to feed it you, because that's exactly what's happening. They're down on a timeline, and they are going to be fed everything it is that they hold in their hearts, and that's for all the three. And beyond that even as well. It's not just the three religions, but in the main, that seems to be where this malarkey begins and ends, doesn't it, really? So yeah, where are we there? Stuart says, it's about creating trust between the mother and the middleman midwife. Well, the middleman is not a middleman. It's a midwife, isn't it? Yeah? If you get what I'm saying. It's specific to wife. Now, wife has legal term meaning, doesn't it? So does husband. You know what I mean? And we can class her as Eve, the tempter. The fruit of the womb, of course, is the baby. Yeah? But there, Eve, the midwife, is playing a naughty game. Playing it against the mother also, but more in tune with the father, because it's the father's surname, the earthly father, that's trapping you into the sin of the fathers. The other sin being he's done the same. His father did it to him. His father did it to him ad infinitum. So, yeah, she is a middleman, sort of. Yeah. And now, interestingly, that video I watched earlier as well also speaks of sort of examining the term rib, how Eve's made from the rib of Adam. Well, when you get into the term mitochondrial, whatever it is, or the DNA, it ribs in it, in the middle. So, you know, and then we get into the chromosome side, didn't we, with the timelines about how the placenta holds the chromosomes of both mum and dad. That's what we thought may be put in the public pool. And then once you're assigned in this system, they hold the same chromosomes that you're running around with. And they've trapped your body, energy and life into this system. Benefactor says, midwife, Sophia, spirit. LFX says, like Frogger, avoiding all the trafficking. Because that's where the trafficking is. That is the trafficking, yeah. So while Q takes you off and says, look, it's all happening under tunnels, and it probably is, you're not looking at the real trafficking going on right under your nose. And Benefactor says, sure, it's forgiveness, yeah. Well, forgiveness is exceptionally important in this game, certainly. Birth certificate, another soul to command and be formed, yeah. Because the husband, that's what he does, isn't it? And then if you look at Poltergeist, the film, you've got this baby trapped in the dead realm. Mother can't get it out. It's father that ends up at the end pulling baby out, doesn't it? Isn't it? Yeah? Father has to come and ultimately pull the child, it's amongst the dead, out of the game. And, but back to what I said originally, what is formed when mother goes to visit Eve first? You know? Nobody's giving some thought. Something's created for the concept to become real. I mean, obviously there's a 60-second delay, so... But, yeah, I mean, this week has been so intuitive revelations. You know, you're just so progressing on this now. Not just me, I mean, you know, we others, but that intuitive side, for me, on the word conceive, really its own contract. Now then, benefactor, insurance, right? Insurance. Think about it, people. What is it these tossers run around with? Whether they're corporate police, whether they're NHS, it's a duty of care, isn't it, on health, your health. And then kill the creditor when they've milked it, and milked it, and milked it, because there's something they want to cash in there before you find out. Yeah? Now, in this court case, that's been going on, is because there's two now, they're going for both parties. As I've come to understand some of these other concepts, so we've included benefactor, absolute beneficiary, indefeasible rights, etc. I've started to implement these terms, these phrases, these ideas into this case. And this week, people have just, the game has just changed completely. There's some very strange things coming back from them. Oh, the court, the receivers, it's just quite ridiculous. The Nolan principles are being broken everywhere. And I've got them in writing on that because we asked them a question about 2 months ago, we were looking for a DUNS number of the court because we do believe that they are courts, corporations. Now, you can't find it on DUNS. There's none in Companies House. I believe they did something in 2011 which put them directly into the SEC and you can't find the numbers. But we asked a specific question. Is the court at Burnley, the county court at Burnley, a corporate enterprise? And they responded saying, no, it's not. So there you got it fixed. They said it is not a corporate enterprise. Yet this week, I've been asking for the names of the registrars, the court registrars, and the court director. Okay. And we got a piece back saying, we don't give customers the names of officers. We have to ask the officers first if they want to give up the name. Now, the word customer, what uses the word customer? A corporation. Right? And going against the Nolan principles, which is that they have to identify themselves as civil servants, again, is another point where they're showing themselves to actually be corporations. So I've now got it in written form from the same court. On the one hand, they're denying they're a corporation, and then I've got emails showing that they're acting exactly like a corporation. I mean, you let them play in their own yard for long enough and they will undermine themselves and show themselves. And that's exactly what they're doing. And that's because they're panicking. They're panicking now. They're panicking because I've done everything right. I've got so many contracts running with judge, CEO, counsel, court manager. I've got concealment all over the show. I've shown clearly that these county court orders are not official because there's no signature, and that's in breach of Civil Procedure Rule 5A 5.3. These are clear facts of law that they're not playing to. And it's just spreading it everywhere. And they're on the back foot. I mean, they're not giving up. Don't get me wrong, they're not fucking giving up. But neither am I. Neither am I. And I'm going to go with this all the fucking way. So the more they do now that's detrimental to my colleagues, the more trouble they're in. The more trouble they're in. Because these are private corporations interloping into your estates, claiming to be acting as the state, but they're acting directly for the Vatican state. Fat Fingers up there in Scotland, he's playing it. His mother, she played it. Edward VII, he played it. Victoria, she played it. Rothschilds set it up as the trustees for the Vatican Bank. Now can you see why the Catholics are rebelling against this Vatican system? I think they're waking the fuck up to the reality of what it is has been going on. Because the means of stealing our estates is through the Vatican. Because of what control it had over our birthrights, our land, our property rights, etc., etc. And they've shifted it into this mimic. And certainly about to when this Land Act ends in January. So what have we got? What are you saying? Let's have a look. Insurance says benefactor. On the right track. Contract says David Gregg. Well, it is a contract of such. And there's another 2 parts to it. The data that they set up at the birth, because again, numbers are being created. So this is where you're getting the contract. But still remember, even though they've set this up in the background, there's still one thing every single officer of these corporate systems has to get from you, and that is they have to have you hold the surname. Every piece of paperwork I've put in this court case, in these 2 court cases, at every point, whether it's an email or whatever, has made a distinction for my colleagues that they are not holding the surname. All our paperwork's correct. Everything they've done is a fraud. And now they're starting to show that fraud. Okay? Interesting. Just shows you've got to keep going. You don't give up. You've got to keep going, and you've got to better every move they make. And the only way you can do that is to understand the moves they're making. And when you start to understand, this again, I'll say this, giving up that magic cabbage has given me this ability now to pull together everything I've learned in all these years that I've played around with law. All the years I've played around with, put it out there, tried it and lost. You know, now that I don't have that menace, the magic cabbage running around in my mind, I can keep things in there, I'm not forgetting anything. But more importantly, I see all the play now as a play rather than just each individual thing coming. The greatest gift I gave myself this year was that, because I smoked that stuff for 35 years. And I think it served its purpose, don't get me wrong. But if I'd have come off that a lot earlier, maybe I would have made this headway a lot earlier, and would have been better for us all, really. Stuart says, yeah, Mupit, yeah, the midwife plays a huge part in the deception. Yes, she does. What's up? Newbie here. I have the long form birth certificate, so what do I need to do next to reclaim my estate, which you say we need to do before January? What are the next steps? Right, well, what's up? Welcome. So what we've been doing on these live streams is I've been prepping people out there that are interested in this line with the data they need to absorb, to get to the understanding of what it is we need to do. However, it's moving in its own pace. So as I get it, I offer it. People that are up for this and watching it, they're getting it. Lots of people moan and cry about it because I'm not giving it in little tiny videos. Tough shit. If you want to learn this stuff, you come on my live stream. It's as simple as that. We're nearly there. What's up? But, you know, you've got to understand that that long form is important in that that's your evidence of your interest as creditor. That's what's important. But what's more important is I can't just come here and say blah, 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 because you won't understand what you've done, and they'll undo it in the next session they talk with you or send you communications. So it's not as easy as blah, 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 do it. Because you could do it, but you'd undermine yourself because you don't understand the whole concept. There's a lot of data, but not as much as you might think. Because a lot of these live streams have been about removing the data that you don't actually need and just presenting the data that you do need to focus to. And we work on the principle that the truth is simple. It's getting there that's the difficult part. And because there's so much to absorb that you don't need, but it fills your mind and you keep going off down these tracks that you think, oh, it's going to be that. Well, it isn't. So unfortunately, what's up? It's not as simple as that. And as a newbie, you certainly can't come in here and expect us to give you everything on a platter. Because when this works, it has to be with people that are competent enough to know what to do once they've done it. But it's good that you're on the path. You've a lot of work to do. June says, trust me. What are you doing, June? Do the midwives know? I would say absolutely they do. Because of the Midwifery Act that was set up just at the end of the 1900s. 1800s rather. They put in a midwifery act, which then the state, the Crown, decided who could birth babies and who couldn't. Whereas before that, it were grandmas, weren't it, that did it. So they fixed it at that point then. So I'd say 100% these midwives are not what they appear to be. They're evil, pure evil, and know it. And this is why they're happy to insist that you stick all this shit in your baby when they're born, because they are pure evil. So, yeah. And ignorance is not an excuse, is it, either? So if you do have one or two in there that don't know, which I very much doubt, because that's why they're being handpicked, because they do know, they're still evil anyway. As simple as that. And what does everybody do? Put the hands of their offspring and their own lives in the hands of these unclean shitbags. And then we wonder what's gone wrong. Same as I said before about everything that happened in these care homes to the elderly. If we weren't putting our elderly into the care homes, that wouldn't have happened, would it? So convenience is the king of this system. And as it pulls you in, so you can be more born idle, spend more time in your bed, watching telly, blame yourself. Just Eats, supermarkets, even that's binding. Oh, I'm going to go to the supermarket and put some stuff in a basket. Can you not deliver it for me? And then they deliver it and it's all wrong. And then you complain about it, but then do it again next week. Are you thick? Yes, of course you're thick. There's no other word for it. There isn't any other word for it. Thick. Anyway. LFX, middle wife. I heard in one chat. June says, all for profit. Well, it is, but it's mainly about stealing your estates. It's full control over the earth and its inhabitants. Now residents. Persons. Humans, I tell thee. Mew says, she is the one who deceives. Exactly. She takes the bite and persuades Adam to do the same. And it's all dealing with DNA chromosomes, isn't it? And we've looked into the chromosomes that are in the placenta. They're the same chromosomes that are in the baby. Public pool, timelines. Very interesting. But I think with the revelations I've had this week, that the placenta, it's interesting to know it, but it's not the be-all and end-all of it. It could be a little bit of a diversion in relation to what it is we need to fully understand in relation to how we approach this. But, you know, our minds remain open at the moment. Consent, says LFX. HMRC, bond, IBAN. But all that comes after. That's all connected to the surname. You know what I mean? All the corporate state is the Crown, the banking system, it's all connected to the person. Yeah, the human. Jerry, son of me, immerse yourself, newbie, in Sean's previous vids on website. Mew says, what's up? It's worth the effort. It is, because there's nothing else on the table now that's got any essence or chance to change things for you and your family. You know? LFX says, fueling the furnace, them care homes. Best to plant oneself in the back garden. Exactly, as well. And that's very important. Didn't we look at that last week? If you've got land, then you want to make sure you get buried on that land, and then it passes automatically to your offspring without probate, without the Crown, without the state, without anything. Your land, get buried on it. And then the offspring, and that's how you keep it. So we're learning, and it's all coming into play as we need it to come into play, isn't it? And I've got people out there in the background, we're all working with this. It's being formulated into written. Are we going to work this in written? How are we going to express it? Who to? More importantly, counter deed. I've told you this now. It's a counter deed we're looking at. Okay, it's more important than the original deed is counter deed because it counters the original deed. There's just a few little points that we need to clarify, but I can tell you now we are so close to unravelling this cesspit. It's been a good week, ladies and gentlemen. A very, very, very good week indeed. So yes, and we're heading into autumn, and of course autumn is what? The harvest. Yeah, I mean, I've told you before, I work with the seasons. And the harvest, we're heading into the harvest season. That's when you harvest all the efforts you've put in over the last year. And they bear fruit. Yeah, and that's how I work. I work with the seasons in that way. So I don't try to push in the spring what comes in the autumn. You know you're building, you're planting, you're creating, you're forming in spring. In the summer, you're expanding what you've planted. You're caring for it, you're nurturing it, formulating it. And hopefully, the next harvest, you're going to harvest the efforts of that work. It might not take you to the pinnacle of what you're looking at, but if you've been doing this for years, which is what I've been doing, you know that one time, at one harvest, you're going to harvest what it is you're looking for. And it has to be this one. How can it not be? For me, on a personal journey in this law, this has to be the harvest that brings me what it is I've been seeking in relation to this trust system. Otherwise, it's blown. And I don't work like that. I have faith that I will find what I seek, providing I'm following the path ordained for me from the inside, my intuition, my comprehension of things that I'm watching and reading and studying, not what some Johnny-come-lately wants me to see it as. And that's how I work. And the fruit is going to be, the proof's going to be in the pudding. And this is when we're happening. We're into the harvest season now. And I am very confident. Not just in this, but also in what I've been applying all my knowledge into these recent court games and making these bastards show themselves the frauds that they are on all counts. And it's got to be good. It's got to be good, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, there we go. And reap the rewards. Lewis says, where should you start to begin to understand practical laws that affect your life? Oh, grief. I don't know where to point you to with this. I mean, I'd say probably the last 20 live streams I've done have been exceptionally important in relation to pulling the wheat from the chaff, you might say. Which means focusing on the subject matter that will actually keep your mind framed in what it is you need. Now, obviously, we're going to put it into practice, and of course, I will teach this stuff, but obviously, it's not going to be online. I mean, how that's going to pan out, I don't know. Even if it means that in most cases, you see, I'd rather give it to you so you can do it yourself. But obviously, so a lot of people on here have been on here for quite a while, and I know you're genuine, and I know you mean well. You might not agree with everything I've said, and that's fine. You don't have to. But you know who you are. And the ones that I know have really helped me and supported me when I needed it as well. I know who you are as well. But if it means that we have to work in a system whereby, we have to work with you so that you're not falling foul of things, then maybe we'll arrange something that can be done in that way. So who knows how it's going to pan out? And of course, the first thing is we have to succeed with this. And again, as I said, we're heading into the harvest. And it's been many years of harvests for me. And like I said, this has to be the final one, because otherwise It's all for naught, and I never achieve naught. And I always achieve something in whatever I'm doing. So can you give me a quick summary of 3 aspects of law that we should go off and research? So man, that's biblical, and person, which is legal. You've got admiralty law, you've got maritime law, you've got ecclesiastical. Okay? Now on my website, in fact, I'll go to it and I'll show you again just how to use my website. Now it needs updating, but the guts of what you need, the subject matter, is in here. Where are we? So let me just see what you can see. Okay. Now, so you look at my website there. If you go to the top, you've got the bridge, home, about, news, in profile, history, English law. Now, if you hover over English law, you get the realm, you get the anti-realm. Okay? Hit the realm. And this is basically giving you the guts of what England is as a common law system and why it's important, because it gives you the freedoms as a body of law. So you've got Gilbert law summaries, canon, deus, positivum, legal definitions of interest, dark side of common law, observance of due process of law, rules of the game for judicial office, judges and magistrates, remedy for the private, certificate of participation, common law trust, the law, in profile definition, monarchy, no court jurisdiction, apostolic letter issued motu proprio, Chicago Manual of Styles, and that goes through what Romley Stewart brought to us. And then you've got court protocols, an error which is not resisted is approved, a truth which is not defended is suppressed, he who does not oppose an evident crime is open to the suspicion of secret complicity. And this is what I've seen work out this week in all these few months. 6 months it is I've actually been doing this. I keep saying 3 months, but I started doing this in March. And that there an error which is not, I can see that now playing. You just keep going, you keep going, you keep going, and you play better than they do. Immigration is a means to keep, to keep up the fraudulent legal title derived from the birth certificate to usurp the credit account evidence in the live birth, because of course they no longer give you the long forms after 1969. The former invests your first name with a surname, a shift from land and canon of original Vatican law to the offshore and sea, admiralty and maritime jurisdiction for those lost at sea. The Holy See governs both the live and the dead. One there determines jurisdiction, which is the video going over the long form, and understanding what encroachment means, another video I did. And then you've got rights of the highway, Magna Carta, provisions of Oxford, Coronation Oath Act, English Bill of Rights, Act of Union, which is actually no good. 1829 Principle of Law Enforcement, adopted by the English and Commonwealth Constabularies, because there are 9 principles. The oath of an English police constable, a allodial title, what that is, and then it goes through some chronological events of interest relative to... Now, I haven't updated these pages for 10 years, maybe. I just haven't had the time. But the basic structure of the stuff you need, plus if you go over the last 20 of my live streams, will give you a big kicker and a start, and you won't need to go through all the shit that I've and others like me have had to do over these 20 years, whatever time we've been in. Now, if you go to English law and the anti-realm, this is a body of data that explains to you what the mimic is, the system that's undoing God's law, the legal system, the Black Magician's book. And it goes through all these different things. Records of civil registration in England and Wales commenced on the 1st of July 1837 and relate to the birth, marriage and death of a person. In Scotland, records began in 1855 and in Ireland in 1864. Note, Irish non-Catholic marriages were recorded from 1845. With this shift from parish to state in the handling of records, something changed that began to remove the inherent rights afforded to the live birth record. Instead of issuing a copy of the live birth record back to your parents, the state split the title and created a mimic or legal title to which it is the beneficiary, and sent back a certificate relating to the legal title, the state therefore being the owner. In a slow move to remove your rights, they have presented the birth certificate through education and misinformation to be the only title to which you are to be recognised by the state. As such, you are liable for its failings, matched not only against law, but against the rules of commerce. In this realm, you are judged on how well you sit with Mammon, or the financier. The trust was established by a grant of a royal charter on May the 24th, 1282, and the sole trustee is the City of London Corporation. The trustee is the legal but not beneficial owner of the trust property. It may only be used for the legitimate purposes for which the fund was created. Bridge House Estates and its grant-making arm, the City Bridge Trust, are run by a committee of the City of London Corporation called the Bridge House Estates Board, the chairmanship of which is held by a common councilman on a 3-year rotation. As of May 2021, the current chair is Giles Shilson. Statutes sent out by the corporate beast are clearly anti-life when viewed from the perspective of NGO programmes the empire controls. Statutes determining the benefits and privileges ordained by the corporate state to forth euthanasia, abortion, vaccination, CO2 limitation, population control, delegation of water rights, expansion of wars, removal of the social system, and the forced indoctrination of the corporate curriculum in how to be a good victim, and lay blame in order the corporate state becomes arbitrator in all your affairs. This is the real reason education has been incorporated, and what we once called schools today call themselves academies. The victim stance is a powerful one. The victim is always morally right, neither responsible nor accountable, and forever entitled to sympathy. That's the narcissist. The madness and insensitivity of this anti-realm speaks for itself. This page offers a focused study of the realm that is anti-everything, that interferes in the monopoly of power and the control by the few. And then you've got a series of links, PDFs, 1666, Charles II lost at sea, trust creation, and there's a PDF. What are we dealing with? These are Edgar files showing that different nations are all classed as corporations on the Edgar search results. Actually, that's just thought. I haven't looked on Edgar for these courts. That might be worth looking at this week. Interesting. Okay, so they're not links, but that I think is afforded to the destruction of a nation, United Kingdom civil state. Legal wrongs are either civil or criminal. Civil law is primarily concerned with the rights and duties of individual citizens amongst themselves. Criminal law defines the duties which a person owes to society. Jurisdiction, inner city temple bar, Dominion governments under the Crown, these are all links. Colonial courts of admiralty, UK High Court judges Bible for implementing the no hiding courts. The rules of the game for judicial office, judges and magistrates. Magistrates Court Act, 3 jurisdictions of court. Now that's very interesting. This gives you the lingo that you need to use if you're in the lowest jurisdiction and he comes out and comes back in, he's changed jurisdiction. And here we go, the ITIS arrangement measured establishing jurisdiction. So when at court and you're asked to state your name, respond only with your first name, for example, and your first name followed by your middle name, but never offer a surname. Then you declare or admit that I am here to address the court in this matter. This tells the judge you are here in your flesh and blood. Body, you are a man, woman, never be in court, always be at court. This must be done with at the very outset of any court case, criminal or civil, and you must avoid the whole issue of the name game entirely. The jurisdiction changes and is signalled when the judge gets up from the bench and leaves the courtroom. When he returns, they have ratcheted up into another and more serious jurisdiction. They always follow the same order and begin in the maritime commercial jurisdiction where the answer is to wish for remedy. The second more serious jurisdiction is admiralty martial law jurisdiction where the answer is to wish for cure and relief. If the judge dares to leave and come back again, you are both playing for high stakes and are now in the ecclesiastical court, the canon law jurisdiction, where the answer is to identify yourself in connection with the Creator. A judge who violates your sovereignty in this jurisdiction loses his job permanently, his pensions, everything. The ecclesiastical jurisdiction operates with your title as creditor to Rome seen in the live birth record, where it is a higher jurisdiction still, that of man in the image of God. No, it's not God, it's the Father. We've got to get rid of that word, so you can tell how old these are. To invoke this jurisdiction, you need to understand the English language, and yet this jurisdiction operates only within Britain, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. Well, that may not be correct now that we know this global system run by the Vatican is being pressed everywhere, so it might not actually work like that. The method. This is the iteration method when facing any action in one of their courts. You make these three iterations as your only replies. Your Honour, for and on the record of this court, I am a living man. The blood flows and the flesh lives. I wish for remedy. He will get up and leave the courtroom when he comes back. Your Honour, just to reiterate, for and on the record of this court, I am a living man, the blood flows and the flesh lives, and I wish for cure and relief. He will then have to exit again or dismiss outright. Most judges will dismiss at this point rather than risk the consequences of final confrontation. But if he comes back a third time, you reiterate. Your Honour, to reiterate, for and on the record of this court, I am a living man, the blood flows and the flesh lives, and we are autonomous. Nothing stands between myself and the divine creator of all that is. And then there is the final end of the nightmare. He has no further recourse nor the jurisdiction to exercise, and he has to exit permanently. This is a stopple through either concealment or silence, which means it's time for the best bit. You then hand the clerk your bill of particulars, which presents your fees with bank details. Well, don't do fees, they're no good. Charges of compensation. So again, all these really, really need updating. And I've got an update here. It's all important as to who, not a what, you charge your fees against, Chuck. You must hit the man, woman who's acting in the capacity of what? As the clerk of the court, judge, prosecutor, whomever, just like make it to living flesh. Well, we've got that together, haven't we, on the, when I've shown you the conditional acceptances. And this is the important motu proprio that basically puts them all on notice. The judges, that they're on their own, basically. Alright, in the ecclesiastical, in it all, actually. And then you've got all sorts of other data just to show you what's killed everything. And then further links here. So they are worth a look. I'm just going through that now, and I haven't read them for donkey's years, and honestly, they really, 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 really need upgrading, for sure. So again, English law, the realm, or anti-realm. And that pretty much gives you, but there's links everywhere. I mean, there's just full of links. And then you go to one link and there'll be links off that, and it goes on and on and on. There you go on. That's an interesting, what you need to know about when your government becomes a corporation. Very interesting piece I put together. When did I put that together? 2018. Oh, look at that. They've kicked some things off. But there I've got images of different countries showing on the Edgar files as corporations. And then it's very interesting. And I cite what I found in my town, because on the stakeholder committees, because that's basically the system that's going on everywhere. But that is a very interesting study indeed. And again, there's a lot of links off that if you want to sort of compound your knowledge base on whatever I'm talking about. So very, very interesting stuff. And it's not that difficult to understand, because obviously all I ever do is try and make things as easily comprehensible as possible. Some of these aspects are quite complex, but if you know a bit, you'll get the gist of what I'm trying to say there. LFX says A4V CQV. When we get a ticket, all's we got to do is tick it. All right. Jerry says, and to add to that, look at maxims and canons. Yeah, absolutely. David Dolby says, does anyone know if it's true that Somerset House holds the birth and death records? Well, it's on fire, isn't it? But they've all been moved to Stuttgart anyway. Is it Stuttgart? Yeah. But no, Blackburn holds them here for you. They're still held all over the place. But it will be interesting to work out what exactly they've just got rid of in Somerset House, would it not? Jerry says, not sure about that. David, be interesting though. Hello, Debbie says, Mew, a benefactor, life in the mix. The benefactor wish for cure and relief as a helper and wish remedy as beneficiary. Jerry says, that's it, Sean. Stakeholders Committee. Absolutely. And on that page that I showed you there, when your government becomes a corporation, I'm pretty giving you there 20 years worth of local actions in my town to show you what I found in how this stakeholder committee works. In every place, everywhere. Your biggest employers are on the stakeholder committee, so that's your Asda, your Tesco, Lidl, any big employer, your police, all these corporate guys are making up the stakeholders, and they get on that table committed by being big employers, and they're dictating everything that the council then does because they're controlling the council. Your councillors are just fruit bats who pretend they've got some of the better, when of course I've been involved in it for quite some time, and I can tell you all they are fucking infants, but dangerous infants because they're stupid and they've got power. But ultimately the power is issued by the executive, which is why I've gone for the CEO at Hyndburn Council and all this, because he's the toss bag that's doing all this. He's got all his officers below him are operating according to what he wants them to do. So that's where I'm going. Then we can go for stakeholders, because they're all getting a pinch of this pie. So whatever the executive does, the stakeholders are actually benefit from it. So they're all in the fraud. They're all in on the fraud. All these big companies and corporations that are around in your... So it's very well worth reading that, because I go into great detail of how these stakeholder committees work. And I break down the corporate trust that they have at the back end of the council and who actually is in control of that. You think it's the council. It's not. They're all corporate and everything's working in relation to the power that trust has. And here it's broken into 3 shares. The body of councillors have a share, Bournefield Construction have a share, and a couple, Irene and James Nevison, have another share. Now, James Nevison, I came across when they were shoving me up through to Phil Collins, because he runs and owns AMS Neve, which makes very high-end recording studio equipment. And him and his wife have got a full 3rd share in the power of the council here. And now at that time I worked out that they were fronting for Prince Charles through the Duchy of Lancaster. So it was always Charlie Boy trying to pull me in to stop me doing what I'm doing. But there you go, that's just a little part of my history way back in the old 90s. But that's how I started to see the game. And I present it quite well in that. So it's well worth a look if you want to understand what your stakeholder committee is in your town. LFX says, all and married to time. Benefactor, life in the mix, Strasbourg, France. Yeah, Strasbourg, that's it. Are the BCs with the ICCE overlooked by the Holy See? Absolutely. And remember, the Holy See are the banking dynastic families. That's who they are. Yeah, that's what the Holy See is as a body. I know it's a legal body in the Vatican system, but actually, when you're looking at it flesh and blood, it's the families that make up the Holy See, banking families. And I've done... I've put tunes together, haven't I, for these Holy See families and shown you. So, yeah, well, that's not bad to say I didn't put a live stream together. I don't think we've done so bad. We've got to 2 hours and I think we've made sense. And we're good. And I've livened up a little bit as well. So, maybe a live stream is the answer to an hangover. I don't like it. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I shall say thanks for joining. Hope you've picked something up. And let's hope we have some good weather this week as we get closer and closer to autumn And them dark nights, which none of us like anyway, but they're coming and they're going to stay until it all comes back again. Yeah, black nobility, absolutely. Venetians, Phoenicians, Persians, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, the glory. Thanks for joining. Thanks, mods, for modding. And I have to say, there's only one thing left to do, and that is to say, till the next time.
electronic engineering,